Alright, so just a few little tidbits if you are installing the Tusk heated seat mod. That's maybe not mentioned on other videos. One, if you need to, you can pull this whole back seat out together. To do that, it's going to be two 14 millimeters here, one 10. Then you're just going to lift that, and this whole track will slide completely out to get the seat out. Two, and probably the biggest one that could easily be overlooked, especially if you live on the East Coast or somewhere where you get rain, is over time it's not hard between washing it, rain, stuff like that. These seat cushions actually get wet. You need the seat to be dry to put the adhesives on there. So luckily for me, a couple days before my day off, I actually broke the staples out to go ahead and get the seat drying themselves. And that's a recommendation. Had a couple fans running for a couple days just to get them good and dried out before the install. And the most efficient way I found to pop these is a small flat blade screwdriver. Just dig in there, and one side will pop out. Just keep going through, and then come back through with a pair of pliers and pull them out individually. It was the quickest way I could figure out how to do that. And you don't have to go much more past halfway or even quite halfway. And when you look at this yellow brown strip, you can cut slightly into that brown. I've already done it and it doesn't affect the heating. That is the wire, if you hold a light up, that you're not wanting to cut there. And kind of the same thing on that side. Both of these, as I was getting up in here, I was right against that yellow. Alright, so here you're going to have two little plastics that you're not going to be able to go so far. So I did trim that much between the two. Again, main focus is that wire connection there and there that I just showed. And you can use, if you get some pretty sharp regular household scissors, didn't have to get too crazy there as far as like getting in the commercial grade, which I got that, but out of curiosity I pulled a home style out. Easiest way I found to do this, just go ahead and slip in there, and I leave the tape on while it's getting situated. You notice I come up. Here I come up about 6 inches, which your lower back isn't going to feel this. Your back's, unless you're oddly shaped or something, your back's going to start somewhere up here. So that's why I got a touch higher, because depending on how tall your shoulders are, you're going to feel the heating pad more up here than you are at that very base where you're not likely to make a connection there. Before you start pulling tape, just go through, feel it, make sure you don't have any odd spots sitting. And for tape, I'm going to pull the bottom section so far back go ahead and stick that about that much. So many inches in, there is a connection that's going through the foam that you're not going to want to mess with or take loose. That's the reason you trim the side sections to squeeze it up past there. And I broke that first section tape up to those plastic tabs that's holding it in place to kind of lock the base section in at the bottom. And then I'm working the rest of that tape up little by little. What I'm doing here is I'm peeling the tape back so many inches and sticking it over. The rest of it. You still have slight fitment. If you do stick it, you can pull it and re-stick it. It's not one of those, once it touches it, it's never going to move type thing, but you do want to work the material fairly quickly though. Again, feeling, making sure I ain't got no outrageous humps or anything that's going to be uncomfortable. Same thing. Trying to do it where the camera is, but it's one of those. We got that situated now. Now, next thing is going to be these strips. And the first one I just use at the base across the bottom. Now the second one, I don't have a good way to get that whole section up in there, but I can do it in chunks. Again, about four chunks right here going to the center. Test feel, make sure everything adhesive wise should be pushed down as best you can before you slide the cover back over. Now, at least in mine, it had a little bit of a slit right here. And I'm going to add to it. Not too crazy, but just enough. That's going to become my starting point, or my little spot through for the plug itself. Keep it nice and tight there. These are the stainless steel staples that I'm using. I'll include an Amazon affiliate link. I did pick these specifically, stainless steel, which ironically the bottom part of mine was all getting rusty as I was going through and popping them loose. And then if I can find the Amazon link, I'll include it, but this is actually just a cheap one from Harbor Freight. I have an electronic stapler that would have shot those staples just fine, but the issue with that is I couldn't get back in there like I can with this one. And from here, you're going to kind of pull, get a few corners, and then from there, just go through and start tightening it up. Oh, might need air. All right, so when you're doing this, again, use those really thin staples, because what you wouldn't want to do is come in here at one of these angles and actually shoot through the seat with a longer staple there. So that's why the little thin ones are important. And you want to kind of work a few staples around, then you can kind of go out a little bit more. As you're kind of pushing into these, you can actually kind of take the gun itself and help to roll to get a little bit tighter there, along with having some pressure beside your hands. Now these, where I'm doing my split, I'm double stapling right there. Both sides right there, get that little split, so a nice little pigtail. It's now got its own little hole there. And then from here, just staple, staple, staple. Now the air pressure in my shop board I'm working with is about 100 to 120 as the compressor cycles. Always check what your staple gun manufacturer recommends, or max safety, that sort of thing. But the thing you want to make sure is when you're shooting these in, one, that they're going all the way flush and getting that nice, good taunt surface to it, but also on the flip side, you don't want to be overshooting staples and going through the seat material themselves. And the corners, it may make sense to add a second staple somewhere. Also, if you ripped a little bit of the material as you're taking out staples and stuff like that, it may make sense to go above or below the existing holes just a little bit. But as always, use common sense with stuff like that. So in case you didn't know, the pad for the back and the pad for the base, they're the same pad, same concept. Now in here, you've got the little attachment point there that it's not wide enough for that full pad to go through. So what I'm doing is I'm taking and getting them at the same point here and here, coming back. I'm gonna find that center contact point with it being fairly centered best I can. I'm gonna say somewhere in here and here. And I'm gonna come back in here and I'm gonna cut as tight as I can without nicking that wire right there. Come on up, and then as I'm getting in here, I'll make my final little curve, and I'll come up again, and the same thing on that side, and I'll show you sliding it in. And on this one, I'm using just a base seat. So if you have a two-seater and you're doing this, leave one of the backs not maybe popped up, so you got a nice little base, because once you scrunch it up, it's going to be hard to lay it down in there like that. Or if you get the four-seater, just grab your rear seats and do your marks from there. All right, and pardon the mess. I've been burning the midnight oil trying to get this stuff ready. But again, I'd suggest you hold it up to the light. You can see where that yellow is, and you can see where your mark is. And what I'm doing is I'm coming over as tight as I can. And I've already cut into the yellow just a little bit. The biggest thing is make sure you don't cut those wires right there. That's where you're gonna make it inoperable. And the light just makes it so much easier to see what you're trying to do and keep in line too. And voila. But yeah, it's just a little tip, using the light to your advantage. All right, and again, I am not an upholstery guy, so if anybody sees me do anything and there's a better way or more efficient or little tips and tricks, definitely shout them out there. I'm just a guy on a budget that does a lot of stuff itself because I am on a budget, and that's the most affordable way to do it sometimes, as long as you can do it and do it properly, is DIY. So this, I'm going to just kind of like scrunch in right here. Again, you're wider than till you get to that cut point there. Again, we haven't pulled the tape, so we're gonna get everything situated. This kind of goes back to that. Everything should feel flush before you start trying to pop tape. You can kind of see I'm pretty much running it right down here. You wouldn't want to go too far for two reasons. One, you're not going to get tape. You'll start getting some issues up here trying to do that too far. But I'm pretty much, if you can see my hands, I'm right up against that point. And once you got that smoothed out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold one side and not the other to pull the tape. You basically want to keep everything in that same spot if you can. Hey, Dixie. She's supervised to see how her heated seats are coming along. I'm trying to keep it off the seat side, which again, this ain't like some super adhesive. If it sticks just a little bit, it'll never stick again type thing. But is keeping the rest of it in place. When you fold it back over, you're going to be where you were at, lined up there. That feels pretty good. I'll do the same thing with the other side here. This is one of those things that I feel like the videos I did see didn't show that good of a job, but again, everybody's got their little tips or tricks. Sure, this is one of those things. Pros, the more they do it, they probably laugh watching someone like me trying to do it. And again, we are all smooth back out there, and that is beautiful. Tape. I don't really feel like the tape is as needed on this. Everything is situated so good. I just don't feel like it's a must-have item. Hoping I'm not messing up by putting it on there, but if anything, it should help. And what I'm doing is I'm gonna cut some squares and then just reach as far as I can just to add a little bit. And just reach as far as I can just to add a little bit. I don't know if the GoPro got that, but that's your heater you're playing around with or wondering what the heck's going on there, Boogus. I know Dave's got boxes out, all sorts of stuff, trying to figure out the layout for the next trip here. But the idea is just have something down there to kind of help it. But I'm going to put a few more pieces there. I'm feeling it to be kind of smooth. If it wasn't smooth, I would just rip it. Or take it back out if it wasn't smooth, I should say. And then kind of the same thing. And on this right here, you're kind of getting into the plastic. And when you peel this over, you're right there at that point stapling as well. But I'm just going to add a couple pieces here and then here, and we're done. Just be careful not to get too gung-ho with it at any point that you just kind of like start ripping it and stuff. And even like, that's just from, you know, wear and tear, not me necessarily doing anything overzealous. Do the same thing. Kind of a split point there. And we're just pulling it in, throwing staples. Alright, so same thing, you kind of want to space these out, but if you notice like in the front right here, these you kind of have to hold and stretch. So that's going to be my first one here. And then same thing, I'm going to pick the points to make sure I'm getting back nice and tight. Yeah, if you sit there looking at it natural and you notice like, hey, that's a ways away, like and this wherever you got like a seam right here, get out to do a double shot as well. Alright, so to get the wires in here, did those two tabs, popped enough where I could pull this loose, running back from here, just for situational purposes. Make sure you keep up which one is passenger, or I say driver and passenger. Alright, so some little installation tips. This will probably save you some headache here, especially if you got a bunch of accessories like I do. That keeps it up out of the way. Now I did go ahead, I did cut a little bit more of an access. I linked both of these together. On an S1 SAE connector. Make it easier to work on. I'll show you my setup in the back. Those are curious. Now the new switches are normal size toggle switches as opposed to the video. A little note there, so it should work out nicely. Unless I messed it up, just drilled it and then use that little dude right there, cut down there. And then the little plastic right here, I did cut this open so I've got room to push my relays back in here. And then I'm gonna run a SAE plug with the splitter up here, just in case I need to tie extra stuff in later, and I'll show that here in a little bit. But I had to kind of pry on this and that to get that popped out. But yeah, about to pop the switches in, and got the base part of my wire. I'm gonna throw a couple zip ties right in here, but moving along. Alright, so just a little food for thought. Now I decided to run my main connection back here. This is Right Coast Off-Roads. Dual battery set up here. So I decided to do an SAE plug for two reasons. One, I can disconnect this and add a splitter. So if I'm running a diesel heater, I've got a 12-volt connection there. And then second, during the summertime, if I'm not going to use the heated seats or want to use an accessory, it's an easy disconnect. Or if I have an issue, I can literally pop this seat and pop those SAE connectors apart. Now keep in mind when you're looking at these, it's easy to run them to where it basically reverses the colors for positive and negative. But if you're unsure, just kind of like lay it out, give it a general run, do your next connection. If you're doing any type of extensions or anything, make sure it's the same positive and negative as you go. Now you can just run, a couple wires, do your connections. Again, not telling you how to do it, but that's just something that I thought was a pretty good idea. Bought one piece, so I'm running 10 foot from here all the way up to the front, and I'm about to pop the interior back together, but I figured I'd just show that little idea real quick. And same thing when you get up here, got the connection there, soldered in to these switches. And I can also split this if I want to do an extra connection up here, 12 volt for heated blanket for McKenna or whatever, but let's get some of this stuff put back together. And out of the three wires, the black and red goes to a battery connection or a bus bar. The yellow needs to be a keyed on power and it will keep the relay on. That can kill your battery. Now, if you're running an SAE plug like I am, you could, in theory, run those two together as long as you remember to disconnect them at the end of a trip or use. That way it's not draining the battery. All right, so another quick installation tip. Your end goal when you're doing these is to be somewhere in here so you're not pinching wires as you start to shift and push everything back together and put the push pins in. Now, yes, I do know the factory bus bar is back behind that center console and would have been the shortest and quickest route to do it instead of running it all the way back to that dual battery setup with that 10 gauge wire. Now, the reason I didn't is I already have a bunch of accessories hooked up on this machine on those factory bus bars, and I didn't want to overload it. So whether you're doing this in a KRX or another machine, keep in mind each seat kit is about 50 watts, which is about 4-point-something amps, just rough math. If you want to be safe and round that up to 10 amps, make sure whatever you're tying it into individually, or if you run them together like I did, that everything is rated for it for safety purposes, of course. And if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like, share, and subscribe. And until the next adventure, hope you have a good one.